One, two. What's going on, my people? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of June the GM. And today we have a really incredible topic that I don't think I've seen many podcasters, sports talk hosts, and just media speak about. And that is the rise of the black quarterback. The rise of the black quarterback. You know what's amazing? In 1980, there was not one black starting quarterback in the entire NFL. Let me repeat this. Okay. In 1980, there wasn't one black quarterback who started an NFL game on opening day. Ain't that crazy? Kind of a change to what's happening nowadays, right? Nowadays, this previous season, 2024, there were 15 black starting quarterbacks in the NFL. What a drastic difference. What a drastic change, right? To think, not one in 1980 to 15 in the year 2024. Now, to understand the significance of what it is to see so many stars, there are black quarterbacks in the NFL, we have to go back a little bit in history. And I feel that that's one of the reasons why I stopped watching major sports networks, because they got away from telling stories. I don't feel that a lot of these networks tell stories like they should, right? Nobody tells stories anymore. Well, I do. I like telling stories, okay? I tell stories. And without stories, what do we really have, right? There's no beauty of the game if you don't tell stories about the game. So I took a lot of notes for this episode because, for one, it's a lot of history pertaining to the black quarterback that I don't think a lot of people know about. Do you know that the first ever black quarterback to start a game, his name was James Shaq Harris. And he was an 8th round draft pick for the Bills. And it was in 1969. So we're not talking about 1910, right? We're not talking about the 1900s, the late 1800s. We're talking about recently. There's a couple of players that I want to speak about that you can that will really help to try to bring clarity to how hard it was for black quarterbacks to play in the NFL, let alone start. One of the players I wanted to discuss, his name was Warren Moon. Warren Moon was a standout quarterback at the University of Washington. And if anybody was old enough, like I was, to see Warren Moon play in his prime, you would know that Warren Moon threw one of the most beautiful footballs in the history of the NFL. Man, Warren Moon threw a beautiful ball. But people don't know that he wasn't highly recruited out of high school because he was black. And they wanted to change his position. So instead of going to a prime college like a USC, because he's from LA out there, well, at least from Los Angeles. He's from California, around Los Angeles. But, you know, he was getting recruited and they were going to change his position. So he said, you know what, I'm going to play JUCO. I'm going to go to junior college first and then go somewhere, see if a team would allow me the opportunity to play quarterback. And that team was the Washington Huskies. Now, let me tell you how crazy this is. I'm not going to break down his entire college career because that's why I think that I can lead you to the water. I can't force you to drink it. I'll give you enough. You can do the research on your own. But what I can say is that Warren Moon won the MVP of the Rose Bowl. The Washington Huskies, his Washington Huskies, upset Michigan that year. And what was amazing about that was they were supposed to get blown out. They were huge underdogs to Michigan, right? The Washington Huskies. And what's crazy about the entire thing is, do you know that winning the MVP of the Rose Bowl, beating a team that on paper they were supposed to lose by a couple of touchdowns to, Warren Moon still went undrafted. Yeah, I'll take a sip of my tea to let you think about that. So Warren Moon had to go play in the Canadian Football League. Won several championships down there. And then an organization by the name of the Houston Oilers took a chance on him. If any of you got a chance to see him play with the Oilers, you would know that they had one of the most prolific offenses in NFL history, right? And they lost a heartbreaker in the playoffs to Buffalo when Buffalo had that strong 4-year run of going to the Super Bowl and losing. But Warren Moon is just a small example of how hard it was and how much the black quarterback had to go through to make it, not only in college, but in the NFL. Another person I wanted to really focus in on, because I feel like, you know, these are things they are not discussed, right? We see 15 starting black quarterbacks last year in 2024, like I mentioned earlier, and we just think that it was always like that the black quarterback always just got the opportunity to lead an organization. But you want to hear something crazy? Warren Moon was quoted saying that the reason why he wasn't recruited to be a quarterback in college was because they believed that black quarterbacks lacked the intellect, the intelligence to lead men. Think about that. We all act like we woke nowadays. But back then, when Warren Moon was playing, which was in 1910, they believed that black quarterbacks did not have the intelligence to lead a football team. Ain't that crazy? This year we had 2 black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. And just to think that was the case back then. So yeah, so in 1980, not one black starting quarterback. So now let's fast forward a little bit. I want to talk about another player that his story blew my mind. He finished in 4th place in 1977 for the Heisman Trophy. They didn't believe he was going to go first round, but they took a chance on him. And Joe Gibbs was the man who took a chance on him. Joe Gibbs, the great Washington Redskin legendary coach. But at the time, Joe Gibbs was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the player I'm talking about is Mr. Doug Williams. Doug Williams was drafted 17th overall in the first round. In fact, Doug Williams was the first ever black quarterback to be drafted in the first round in the NFL. The first ever. Okay? That was, I believe, if it was 70, finishing fourth in the high, I think that was like 70. I think it was, you know what? Forgive me because my dates are mixed up. But I believe it was in the late 70s, that draft. But anyway, Doug Williams was the first black quarterback to be drafted in the NFL draft. Do you know that there was a time when Doug Williams, the starting quarterback for his team, when there was only 28 teams in the NFL, Doug Williams was the 54th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Hold on. Listen. Doug Williams was one of the starting quarterbacks of one of 28 teams in the NFL, but he was the 54th highest paid quarterback in the league. In other words, the backups were making more than him. Doug Williams, if you can recall, faced the mighty Broncos in the Super Bowl. And the mighty Broncos were supposed to smack him in the mouth. John Elway, the legend himself, and the Denver Broncos were supposed to smack Washington that year in the Super Bowl. I believe it was Super Bowl 20. Was it 22? I believe it was Super Bowl 22. Anyway, Doug Williams and the Washington Redskins faced the mighty Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl. And if anybody remembers that Super Bowl, Doug Williams actually got hurt in the first quarter of the game. And when they looked up at the scoreboard, it was 10-0. And Denver was doing what Denver does, running and slinging the rock with Mr. Elway, who, by the way, John Elway always had one of the best cannons in football. His arm was made of steel. That man can throw a rock. So in that Super Bowl, Doug Williams and the Washington Redskins were down 10 points, 10-0. But what happened after was something that hasn't been done since. 35 unanswered points in the quarter. Yeah. Washington ended up spanking the Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl. And it made Doug Williams not only the first ever black quarterback to start a Super Bowl, but the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. There was a time when Doug Williams was out the league. He was in the USFL. And a lot of you remember the USFL because the USFL, was a league that was trying to challenge the NFL and was signing a lot of big-time players. A lot of big-time players came from that league. But what Doug Williams pulled off was the miraculous, because up to that point, the NFL didn't believe that a black man can lead an NFL organization, yet alone win a Super Bowl being the starting quarterback. But Doug Williams proved everyone wrong. Now, there's a documentary on Doug Williams online. If you guys want, hit me up. I can send you the link to it. But man, when I tell you it's phenomenal, he talks about losing his wife during the highlight of his playing career to a mysterious illness and how he had to be a single father. And oh my God, the Doug Williams story. Woo! Emotional story. You see, we're missing that in sports nowadays. A lot of stupid stuff going on these big time networks, which I'm not going to name. They don't talk about stories no more, about history. They don't mention the things that made us fall in love with the game. I love football. I love the stories of the individual players and athletes. Right now, I just finished watching something, and I'm not going to mention what I watched because it's part of my GOAT talk, which is coming up in around 5 minutes. But to think that in 1980 there was not one black starting quarterback, to last year there was 15 opening day. And let's be honest, guys. This is not a race thing, right? Because there are great players of all ethnicities. But I don't know about you. My favorite quarterback is Lamar Jackson. That's what it is, right? Lamar Jackson is my favorite quarterback in the NFL. I've never seen a player like him. To me, he's like Vic elevated. And that's crazy to say because Michael Vick, we all know how incredible he was. But there is a real thing. There are numerous articles, and one of them I came across said that black quarterbacks are 2 times more likely to be pulled out of a game early for quarterbacking, for not having a good quarterbacking game, as opposed to white quarterbacks. These are facts. You can look this stuff up. In fact, Lamar Jackson, they wanted to change his position to wide receiver. We all know this, right? That's why he dropped the 32nd to the Ravens. They didn't want Lamar Jackson to be. Could you imagine the NFL without Lamar Jackson being quarterback? But that's what they tried to do, make him a wide receiver. I don't try to make excuses by bringing race into sports, right? But you would be asinine to say that racism doesn't exist in the modern day sports still. Because let me tell you something, the heat that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders have been getting these last couple of months leading up to the draft is crazy. I don't think that if Shedeur Sanders was white, he would be getting destroyed like he is right now. A quarterback that took a 1-10 program and turned them into winners is looked at as he shouldn't even be drafted in the first round. Some say not even the second round. I mean, I don't know what these dudes look at. I don't know where it comes from, where some of these comments stem from. And let's be real, right? Let's be real. A lot of guys get a lot more slack. I mean, nobody talks about Trevor Lawrence, right? Who was supposed to be the greatest talent in the last 20, 25 years of the NFL. He's been an average player his whole career, Trevor Lawrence. But dudes want to kill Caleb Williams after 1 year and a stinky Chicago team. But let's see now what he does with a real coach in Ben Johnson. The point I'm trying to make is that as sports fans, we will be overlooking the reality that it's harder for a black man to play quarterback in the NFL than anyone else. Their journey has been harder, right? I think the journey of a dark-skinned black man is even harder. And you probably say, what does this Puerto Rican dude know about that? Let me tell you a true story, right? When I was young, I used to hear my grandmother in Spanish calling my father a monkey because my father was very dark-skinned. He was a dark-skinned Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico. So I had to deal with that and hear that. And I used to be really angry when they would say that about my father. So I can only imagine what other black men have had to experience over their lives. Other black women have had to experience over their lives. Racism is a serious thing. And I'm not trying to make this a political show like the one we have out there in the big networks. But the reality is it is harder for a black quarterback to succeed in the NFL than it is for a white one. And these are just facts. And if you can't agree with that, then it's obvious you just feel a certain type of way. You're not paying attention to the game. In fact, does anybody remember what they used to do to Cam Newton in the NFL? Do you remember how many times they would deliberately take shots at Cam Newton's knees and the referees will not throw one flag? Tell me anybody in the comments if you remember that. Tell me. Because I remember Cam Newton getting destroyed physically and they would refuse to throw a flag. But if you win like this to Tom Brady, forget about it. 15 yards. In fact, today's GOAT Talk is one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. Regardless if he's white, black, Puerto Rican, Chinese, it don't matter. This boy was bad. So I think I want to get pretty much going with GOAT Talk already. I think it's GOAT Talk time. See, I'm getting my hats because my goat hat is, in the stash. I only rock it for the show. But while I play this GOAT Talk intro, I want you to get ready because the man that we're going to talk about today, to me, revolutionized the game of football from the quarterback position. One of the most exciting players I've ever laid eyes on. Let's get ready for GOAT Talk. Oh, yeah. It's everybody's favorite time. It's my favorite time. It's GOAT Talk time. Today's GOAT Talk is a man who, when I was growing up watching him play, I'm getting my notes up, sorry guys, was a man who, when I watched him play, I used to watch him in awe. One of the most grateful players I've ever seen. He played the position at one of the highest levels a man can play, the quarterback position. He to me had one of the, well, we'll get to that time for him. But anyway, the quarterback I want to discuss is none other than Randall Cunningham. Randall Cunningham, the Philadelphia Eagle legend. My God, if you saw Randall Cunningham play. From the University of Nevada, when I didn't even know they had a football team. The Running Rebels of Nevada, I heard about them in basketball when they had them squads out there, UNLV, but in football, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, he came from. Nevada, Las Vegas. Nevada, Las Vegas. Nevada, Las Vegas. Nevada, Las Vegas. UNLV. Randall Cunningham played for the Eagles, and I want to give you some of his statistics when he played there. I'm not going to read you every single year because every single year wasn't crazy, but I want to explain to you that at the time he played quarterback, the running quarterback wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing for a quarterback to not only sling the rock, but run it. And let me tell you something. Randall Cunningham had one of the most beautiful bombs in the history of the NFL. If you saw Randall Cunningham play and you saw him throw a bomb, you would know what I'm talking about. Man, his wind up the way, he was beautiful. In 1987, Randall Cunningham threw for 2,700 yards, almost 2,800 yards, and ran for 500 yards, 26 total touchdowns. Mind you, this was a time when that was not normal for a quarterback to throw for that much and run for that much. Now Lamar Jackson makes it easy, right? Michael Vick made it easy, but at that time, that wasn't a thing. In 88, he threw for 3,808 yards. Just think about that. That's crazy in 88. And by the way, around that time is when they started throwing the rock a little bit more. Back then in football, throwing the rock crazy like that wasn't a thing either. But not only did he throw for 3,800 yards, but he ran for another 624 yards, 30 total touchdowns. And in 89, he threw for another 3,400 and ran for another 600 plus yards with 25 total touchdowns. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that Randall Cunningham was must-see TV. In fact, I would argue the point that I think Randall Cunningham in his prime was the most dynamic quarterback playing the game of football. I'm sorry. And if anybody saw him play, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, what couldn't he do, Randall Cunningham? Right now, if Randall Cunningham was young coming out of college, They will talk about him being the most gifted quarterbacks humanity has ever seen. But let me tell you what was crazy, what I watched earlier today, as a reminder that the New York Jets ain't the only organization that suffers. 1998. Let's see if anybody in the chat can tell me who was the best team in football in 1998. Anybody? Well, I'll tell you who. In 1998, the best team in football was the Minnesota Vikings, led by Randall Cunningham. In fact, at the time, they held the record for most points in a season in the history of football. In fact, I think that record still exists. Hold up a second now. I'm checking this. Because I think that record still exists. Who was it? Where is the Vikings, man? I know I'm not going crazy. Somebody in the chat, look up that statistic because I know I'm not going crazy. But I know at the time when Minnesota in 1998 with Randall Cunningham, they broke the record for most points scored in an offense in the history of football. Anyway, he threw for 3,700 yards, ran for another 100 and change, 35 touchdowns, only 10 picks. That team in Minnesota, they had Chris Carter, the Ohio State legend, Chris Carter. And they had the rookie, one of the most sensational rookies in the history of the NFL, Randy Moss, the leopard himself. And they had Robert Smith running the rock. You remember Smith? Ooh. So earlier today, while studying for this GOAT Talk with Randall Cunningham, I saw that season. I played the whole little documentary on the 1998 Minnesota Vikings season, coached by the great, legendary, who has passed on, Mr. Dennis Green. You know Dennis Green, famous clip, right? They were who we thought they were. They were who we thought they were. Y'all remember that Dennis Green? Amazing coach. Amazing. When you got time, you don't have to be a Viking fan to appreciate greatness. Go back and look at the 1998 Minnesota season. Another thing I can send you the link of if you're interested. They lost in the playoffs to go to the Super Bowl to the Atlanta Falcons. And what's ironic about it is they could have sealed the game with a field goal by their kicker, Anderson, who went 2 years straight not missing a kick. And what you think he'd do to seal the game when they were up already 7? It would have been a 10-point lead. With only a few minutes left, he misses the field goal. Atlanta comes down, scores. They go into overtime. Minnesota can't move the rock. Atlanta gets the rock. Atlanta kicks the winning field goal from the same distance that Anderson missed the field goal. The Minnesota kicker missed the kick from 38 yards out that could have sealed the game. And the Atlanta Falcons kicker, also last name Anderson, if I'm not mistaken, he hits the 38-yard field goal to win the game and put them in the Super Bowl. Check that out. That Minnesota Vikings team, to me, in all my years of living, is probably one of the 5 best teams I've ever seen play that did not win a Super Bowl. But the reason, I think sometimes that I don't want people to think that when I do a GOAT Talk, it's all about statistics. Because if you're going to do GOAT Talk just based off of statistics, then I'm just going to name top 10 running backs, top 10 wide receivers, top 10 quarterbacks, top 10 defensive ends. No, my GOATs are men that to me revolutionized the game or the position in which it was played. My GOAT Talk is about greatness. It's about when I was a kid watching these men play with my mouth open like this, amazed at the beauty, the grace, and the physicality of these players. But Randall Cunningham was unlike any other quarterback I've personally ever seen. Tall, grateful, rocket for an arm, could run the rock, and was an amazing leader. And in fact, just 2 years before that 1998 season, Cunningham was out of football. Check that out. He was out of football, Cunningham. But when you got time, check out Randall Cunningham, man. Check out that 1998 Minnesota Vikings season, the season that I think they should have won the Super Bowl. So Jets fans, please don't think that we are the only organization that suffer, because that loss that Minnesota had to the Falcons, I think their fans are still recovering from that L. So that's my GOAT today, man. Randall Cunningham. The beauty of execution, man. In my eyes, one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen play the position, and someone that we should all remember as a GOAT. So, once again, talking about the rise of the black quarterback, man, if you look at some of the black young quarterbacks in the league, it's very exciting to see guys like C.J. Stroud. Of course, the best young one to me so far, my man in Washington, why his name, Jaden Daniels. And let me tell you something, don't sleep on Caleb Williams. He got a real head coach now. Ben Johnson's going to be a real head coach. I think Caleb Williams is going to show you why he was the #1 overall draft pick. Boomer Sooner, because that's really where he got his stripes before he went down to USC, before Lincoln Riley left us. Anyway, that's beside the point. Just to think that in 1980, not one black starting quarterback, to now, last year, 15 starting black quarterbacks. Phenomenal, man. It shows you how far the game has come. I still think that, there's still a strange hidden undertone of racism in the NFL. You can see that there's no wow, Phil, they're now 7th all time. That's how many points been put up since then. That's crazy. But at the time in 98, they did break the record and they were #1. But that's crazy. I'm pretty sure the Rams are on the list of one of the teams that broke the all-time scoring record when they had down there with Kurt Warner and them boys. I know they did it. So I think that it's kind of weird that not one owner in the NFL was black. I think that's crazy. I know they have a minority owner in Khan out there in Jacksonville, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's one black owner in the NFL, and if there is, my God, there ain't many. But there's still a hidden undertone of racism in the NFL. It's been like that for a long time. And you know what's funny? You never that's why it's interesting that the Giants finally got a black quarterback who's going to start, because for years I know they had Tyrod Taylor and like that, but the Giants never really drafted a black quarterback and made him the face of their franchise. There's a couple teams like that. I think that the struggle with the black quarterback is something that's really serious, right? To think that Lamar Jackson was going to be turned into a wide receiver, to think that you got teams that undervalue athleticism and use that to say, hey, I don't think this guy can play quarterback, put him as a receiver or make him a corner, make him this or make him that. It's crazy to me that still exists, but it does. I can tell you this, that the NFL, to me, is the most beautiful sport there is. I know people who watch baseball would say it's baseball. People who watch basketball would say it's basketball. I watch all those sports, but there's nothing like football to me. And I know that the quarterback position, to me, it's the hardest position in sports to play. I think being a quarterback of an NFL team, it's the most complex thing any athlete can do. That's just my opinion. Of course, now they laid up the rules. You can't breathe on a quarterback without getting a penalty. But please understand that the quarterback position is extremely hard to play. And to think that at one time they used to say that black people couldn't lead the team because they lacked the intelligence to be a starting quarterback is crazy. When so many great black people invented so many things that they don't get credit for, just amazes me. But that's another show, another topic, another day. That being said, some of my favorite quarterbacks in the league right now: Lamar Jackson, my favorite by far. Jaden Daniels. I I really love Caleb Williams out of college. I think he's going to be amazing. My New York Jets got a black starting quarterback, Justin Fields. I hope he plays halfway as good as some of the guys I just mentioned. I pray. I'm not sold on him. I don't know. But what I can say is that I wish that racism didn't exist in sports the way I feel it does in football. I wish that people were looked at for just their talent and their talent alone. I think that Shedeur Sanders is getting a raw deal. I think that Cam Ward is a clear-cut best quarterback in this draft, and I've heard crazy things about him that he would have been the fifth or sixth best quarterback if he was coming out last year. So it's a lot of crazy stuff that's still being said by people. Why, I have no idea. But what I can say is this: that the NFL has its ways, and hopefully that will change over time. I can't say that football is better because of the black quarterback. In fact, I want to play you something. I took the time to get this stuff for you guys. I want to play you this. This here that I'm going to play this clip is he is a civil rights activist who is deep into football. And this is something that he said about how the black quarterback became a necessity in sports, or a dual threat. Let's put it that way, because now you know they're always using the dual threat quarterback. What is a dual threat quarterback? A quarterback who can run and a quarterback who can pass. Listen to this, and this clip is from I believe this clip is definitely from the 80s. So check this out. Listen to what he says.
Sacking the quarterback, and numbers of sacks became tremendously important because the quarterback was the key athlete in the sport. This put a premium on escapability. All of a sudden, you had a proliferation of black quarterbacks who had that escapability factor. What I'm saying is that it was Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Charles Haley, Chris Dolman, who gave us the black quarterback just as surely as the lion gave the antelope his speed. I think one.
Oh my God, you hear that? So basically, the man is breaking down how the pass rush by guys like Lawrence Taylor, Dolman, Charles Haley was so vicious back then that the quarterback who was standing in the pocket was basically free meat for lions. The NFL understood, hold up now. We can't keep drafting these guys who are just pocket passes because the rush is coming so violently. Ask Joe Theismann. Y'all seen that play when LT hit him? Aye. The pass rush was becoming so violent in the NFL when Lawrence Taylor, Charles Haley, and them were playing that they started looking for dual threat quarterbacks. The pass rush birthed the dual threat quarterback that we see today. Let me repeat that. The vicious pass rush back in the days birthed what we know today as the dual threat quarterback. He's the reason we got those edge rushers are the reason we got the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jaden Daniels, the Caleb Williams, quarterbacks with escapability, who are not going to be sitting duck standing there in the pocket and then getting destroyed. Okay? Is it safe to say that if not for the black quarterback, would we ever really have the dual threat quarterbacks we have today playing in the NFL? I know we have Frank Tarkenton back then and all that stuff, but remember, black quarterbacks weren't getting drafted when Frank Tarkenton was running around making plays in Archie Manning. They wasn't drafting black quarterbacks back then, because if they did, I'm sure a lot of those quarterbacks would have been black quarterbacks running all over the field. So let's be honest, okay? When Archie Manning and Tarkenton and dudes like that were running around Namath, there was no black quarterbacks. I just told you that in 68 was the first black quarterback that ever start a game. So let's think about that before we get crazy. I believe that in this modern day football, you have to have a dual threat quarterback. I think the days of a quarterback that can't even at least move to get a first down is dead. Even Shedeur Sanders can move around a little bit, and he's going to have to do a little bit more in the NFL because they coming. They coming. Justin Herbert can run, right? Jalen Hurts can run. We already said Daniels. We already said Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Fields. Look at all the quarterbacks in the NFL. Deshaun Watson, although he hasn't been healthy since he started getting back rubs. But you know what I'm saying. You need dual threat quarterbacks who can run. Russell Wilson still got a little bit of get up in them. You need to have quarterbacks that can run. Aaron Rodgers, although he's 900 years old now, there was a time when he used to run the rock a little something. Dak Prescott, right? Purdy can move around a little bit. This is the age now of the dual threat quarterback. When the NFL looks for quarterbacks in the draft nowadays, they're looking for a quarterback who can get a first down with his legs, because they know that sometimes you don't even have 2 seconds to dissect the field. Sometimes you got to go. You got to hit the hole and go. And I expect Justin Fields to do that a lot for my New York Jets, because I don't know how much time he's going to have in that pocket. We got a decent line, but let's not act like they were blocking a lot for Rodgers. He was getting smoked back there. So I want to just give some love to the rise of the black quarterback. I want to give love to all the black greatness back in the days that had to fight like Warren Moon, like Doug Williams, to just be seen, to just be given an opportunity to lead a team. Now look what we got. And you know, the best example, the most recent example that we have of a quarterback who had to fight to show people can play quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Let's not forget that. That was in 1910. Let's not forget that was in 1910 that they were trying to turn Lamar Go-Get-It Jackson into a wide receiver. That was recent. So let's not act crazy. These are relevant things I talk about. And I try to touch subjects that a lot of people don't want to touch. Why? Because that's what I do. That's what June the GM does. And I told you the GM don't stand for general manager. It stands for good money. Because when you invest your time in me, expect a good return. That's what I am. June the GM, baby. Look, I want to thank you for tuning in. I think for the next few weeks, I'm going to have my show on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Is there anybody who wants to jump on and talk a little bit of football, whether it's Jet football, whether you're a Dolphin fan and want to talk about the Dolphins, although I pray there's no Dolphin fans watching. Well, I don't mind you watching, but I don't want to talk about the Dolphins. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy the link, and I'm going to put the link in the description, in the chat. And if you want to jump on, talk some football, it will be fantastic. The link is there. I'll give you some time if you want to log on. I'm drinking tea this time. Every time I drink cold water, it kind of tightens my throat, kind of crazy. So I wised up. I said, let me go get some tea. Ginger tea. I need it. I see you, Phil, saying some stuff down there about Cunningham. Yeah, you're right. A lot of black quarterbacks are underappreciated. I mean, it just is what it is, right? I mean, for anybody to say that black quarterbacks ain't I mean, they kill Lamar Jackson. Yeah, he gets the MVP, but they still kill him. Until Lamar Jackson wins the Super Bowl, they're not going to respect him. They'll say he's the best tight end in the NFL, dual threat greatness. They'll say all types of things. But Lamar Jackson got to get the monkey off his back. He needs to win that championship. Lamar Jackson has to step it up in the playoffs. And I know it's not all on him, but to me, he hasn't played, unlike Josh Allen, who plays his best in playoffs. Lamar Jackson does not excel in the playoffs the way I know that he can. He doesn't play up to his capabilities, I think. I think he has mediocre to average games. Does anybody want to jump on, talk some football? The link is in the chat. Let's talk. Whether you want to talk some Jets, some upcoming draft, we could talk a little bit of draft. It's coming. I know that I will be in New York City live in full effect the 24th for the Jake Asman draft party. I'm going to be down there. I'm going to meet a lot of fellow Jet fans, man. I'm excited about it. A lot of dudes that I've been chatting with for the last 3 months that I've gotten to know. They've gotten to know me. It's going to be fantastic to actually put a face to a lot of the names. And hopefully, we're happy on the 24th of the draft that Muji and Glenn don't do some crazy stuff and draft somebody that no one expects. I'm hoping it's Membu or Tyler Warren. I'll be happy with either one. Of course, my heart wants Tyler Warren because he's exciting to me. But the right pick, if he's on the board, would be Membu. Why not lock down the right tackle? We already got the young left tackle in Olu. Why not lock down both tackles for the next 5 years? I mean, it would solidify our offensive line and probably give us one of the best offensive lines in football from a youth perspective and high ceiling perspective, right? Also, I do want to discuss that we will have an episode soon talking about the NBA playoffs. NBA playoffs are coming. I still watch my basketball. I don't watch my basketball as much as I watch football, but we do know that this is all, free agency talk, draft talk. The NBA playoffs are coming. I do want to talk about that, but I can't tell you this. I'm going to have a video out in a couple of weeks about it. Right before the playoffs, I'm going to have a little something about the NBA. I'm going to tell you now, you better be careful with the Golden State Warriors. The light-skinned assassin, Steph Curry, is not playing no games. He got locked down Jimmy Butler down there with him. Draymond Green is an excellent defender. They got some scoring off the bench. I'm going to tell you now. You don't want to face them. That's not the type of team that you want to face in the playoffs. In fact, I'm picking Golden State to go to the championship this year. Yeah. I don't know if they can beat the Celtics, but I'm picking the Celtics in the East. I'm a Knicks fan. I hate to say, but nobody's going to beat the Celtics. I mean, they got average dudes that scoring 50 a game. It's not even Brown no more, and it's not even Tatum. Anybody on that team can give you buckets. They got a squad down there, man, in Boston. Man, I hate Boston. Anyway, but we're going to have an NBA special coming soon, an NBA playoff special. Don't got the name for it. Don't know when I'm going to drop it. I'm going to drop it right before the playoffs. But I'm looking forward to that. I am working on getting a few guests on here, one before the draft, because I want to have some draft talk. I got somebody in mind. I need to reach out to them. It's somebody that some people are familiar with. But I am going to bring on a guest, and the whole episode will be dedicated to draft talk and different scenarios and possibilities and things of that nature. Jet Philly. Donovan McNabb was another quarterback that was overlooked and disrespected because he quarterbacked in Philly, a city that's really hard on their players. But Donovan McNabb was I'll give you another one that was really great. Steve McNair. Steve McNair was a great quarterback, man. Steve McNair was phenomenal. Came from a small college. Great quarterback, Steve McNair. Donovan McNabb was great. There's been a lot of quarterbacks over the years that have been overlooked and disrespected, and they act like, they were all right. But that's not the case, right? We know, real football fans know the significance of some of these young black quarterbacks and how important it is for them to do well in the league. And some of the greats have been overlooked, like the Cunninghams, like the Steve McNairs, like the Donovan McNabbs, like the Warren Moons. There's been a lot of great black quarterbacks throughout history that I feel deserve their respect. And that's why I put out episodes like this, The Rise of the Black Quarterback, because they came a long way from 1980, not having one starting black quarterback, to now last year, 2024, to have 15 starting black quarterbacks. The NFL's come a long way with that, but I do believe it's because of the talent of the quarterbacks, not because that's really the NFL's goal. Because let's be real, the NFL doesn't make things easy. And we're seeing that this year with Cam and Shador, the heat they're getting, when I think they're both talented and worthy of #1 draft picks. Anyway, next Wednesday's episode will definitely still be at I'm looking here. Next Wednesday's episode, I'm still gonna have definitely the 7 p.m. slot. I hope you guys tune in. Any ideas for shows? I'm gonna put up the banner now. Any ideas? Just send me a little email, man. Any ideas for guests? If you want to be a guest yourself and you feel that you want to be on here live in full effect on my live stream, hey, don't hesitate, man. Don't be afraid, man. This is what we do, right? We talk sports. So there's the email. I want to appreciate everyone for tuning in. Once again, I'm getting started, man. You know, I've been trying to work on an intro with a couple different people so far. People haven't came through. I've tried to talk business. My money's ready to go, but I don't know. It's really hard to find professional people who really want to do their thing. I've talked, like I said, with more than one person, at least 2 to 3, and things are still kind of in a standstill for my intro. But you know, I'm just getting started, man. There's a lot of things that I'm trying my best to do. It's really hard to put the banner on and do this and do the sound. I'm learning as I go, but I'm grateful for every single one of you who took the time to watch my live stream, and even those who watch my live stream after. This is a passion of mine. I'm not getting paid yet for it, although that would be nice if I can work for myself doing this for a living. But you know, there are a lot of content creators that I respect, that I look up to, that have put the battery in my back and have been supportive of me. 2 of them that I could think of right off rip is Kind of Long and my boy Green. They have been very, very supportive of me doing my live stream, and I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that support. They've even mentioned it on their shows, and that means a lot to me. And once again, I want to thank you, the viewers. I don't call you fans because a fan is a fanatic. I call you supporters, viewers. I want to thank all my supporters for tuning in today for this episode of The Rise of the Black Quarterback with June, the GM. And remember, the GM don't stand for general manager. June, the GM, stand for good money, because when you invest your time in me, you can expect a phenomenal return. Thanks for tuning in. Peace and God bless.